generative AI, large language models, tiny language models, observability, models. That's all we've been hearing for the last 2 days ever since we kickstarted this event. So should we make an attempt to break that monotony and talk about the other side of the coin, the AI adoption alchemy? Now, in this regard, Richard Thaler, a Nobel Prize-winning economist and the pioneer of behavioral economics, once said that the assumption that human beings and all human beings will be able to figure out how much they want to save, how they can save it, and be able to implement that plan is completely preposterous. As we gather here at Cypher 2023, it's rather awe-inspiring to reflect on how far we have come ever since the days of AI's inception. And that's very intuitive, because as humans, we get to create. We infuse and create things in places where nothing existed. So for the past 300,000 years, we've made art, we've made cuisine, we've rigged up entire societies. And therefore, we also created artificial intelligence systems that stand beside us today, hand in hand, painting cosmic portraits, filing tax returns for us, and even giving us health advice. So the question today is not whether AI is real, but rather how profound its impact can be. And are we truly prepared to adopt AI responsibly and meaningfully? So before we actually move further, I would like all of you who are comfortable owning a robo like this to please raise your hands. Very, very minimal in few. All right, how many of you, of those who actually are comfortable owning this robo, would rather want to infuse it in your daily lives, tending your kids, walking your dogs, washing the dishes, etc.? Now I see the hands going up. And finally, how many of you would actually feel safe and secure and keep your doors unlocked at night with this thing moving around in your houses? Only one. And that actually brings us to the point that we are wary of letting AI or systems like this into our personal spaces. And that's not unfounded. The question here is, what's the difference between this robo and maybe a room full of NVIDIA A100s? Is it the mobility, or is it the sense of competing intellect that creates that aversion in us? Actually, it's very difficult to pinpoint this to one particular fact, because human decision-making is not black or white. It's a gray area that goes beyond logics and rationality. But on the other hand, I'm pretty sure that almost all of us would have relied to some or the other navigation app this morning while maneuvering your way through the busy roads of Bangalore to reach Manyata Tech Park. And several of us rely on weather maps and weather prediction apps to plan our day outings. What is it in those consumer apps that other AI systems don't? Is it the cognitive ability to help us convince of our decisions, or is it the control that we still yield on our decision-making despite going onto those apps for answers? Now, if we actually look at the pace of development in AI, in the last 10 years, we have made massive progress. From the breakthrough game of Go in 2016 to today, AI systems are capable of moving together with us, reading messages, deciphering images, and doing whatnot. Now, during a recent US Senate Judiciary Committee that was actually talking about legislations and regulating AI, the Senator of Connecticut said that amongst his constituents, the single most widely spoken statement about AI was that AI is creating a sense of fear. But there is another group, a group of AI experts within the same room that actually said that despite all the fears, despite all the aversion, one thing that's going to remain constant is the pace of progress and the pace of development that AI will entail. And in the next few years, that development is going to grow massive. Now, when we move over to actually understand the pace of AI innovation and the pace of adoption, they are out of tandem. What we have seen classically and historically is that enterprises versus the consumer apps are not really going together when they are adopting the various forms of AI technologies today. If you look at this very graph, it shows you that today AI surpasses humans at a number of tasks, but on the other hand, when we talk about adoption, less than 1/3 of organizations say that they have actually adopted AI into their very, very own business systems and processes. Now, what do enterprises actually believe? While it's very easy to say that, all right, AI innovation is growing rapidly and we all should be adopting it, the challenges at enterprise levels are very, very different. Enterprises have to actually balance between tradition and innovation. They need to balance the resistance to change, and they need also to make fundamental changes at the grassroots level. However, it is also important to take a look at and understand that these are the very organizations that have all the wherewithals. They have the power, they have the influence, and they have the resources to make AI adoption a success if they are able to go past the initial inertia that these organizations have. When we look at any technological advancement, in hindsight, everything begins to make sense. So even when we look at AI, we say that, all right, these developments that are taking place in the space of AI is controlled by the compute power, the data, and the infra that you have. But today, when we look at the adoption of AI, or despite all eyes being on Gen AI, the recent survey on the state of AI in 2023 revealed that only about 55% of organizations today have been able to adopt AI successfully. Less than 1/3 of organizations said that they had AI in more than one business process. About 23% of respondents of the survey said that 5% of their EBIT contributions could be attributable to AI. Think about and imagine the amount of potential that still lies there to be harnessed. But we also need to understand that the business gurus, the management stalwarts who are actually making these decisions, understand and know, and the statistics point them to fact which says that if you adopt AI, you will be able to save at least about 50 to 55% cost in your production run costs. So I am confused, and I do not understand what's happening. There's definitely something beyond logics, beyond rationality that is driving these decisions and these discussions at the enterprise level. When we look at the classical economic theories tell us that all human beings are rational actors, all human beings will make optimal decisions, and they will do so in their own best self-interest. They will harness all information that is available to them and the tools that are available to them to make these decisions. But another side of economics, which is the behavioral economics, and it is actually an interplay between psychology and economics, says that, by the way, we are all irrational beings. And the decisions that we make are actually related on a whole lot of different biases. You have confirmation bias. You have a loss of aversion. You do look at availability bias, and we will be unearthing and unpeeling some of these biases as we proceed during the session today. We will actually look at 3 very pertinent concepts that drive decision-making and human buying behavior. The first that you see here is the prospect theory. So the prospect theory says that when I am making a choice between several different alternatives, I will always and always go after the sure win. After the sure win, and try to minimize my losses. Now, rationally, we all would try to minimize our losses. But if you look at the data that you see here, if you're given an opportunity to win $250 guaranteed, or gamble on a 25% chance of winning $1,000 and a 75% chance of winning nothing, most of us research points will choose the sure win. But if, on the other hand, you were presented with the chance to lose $750 guaranteed, or a 75% chance, which is pretty high, or a 75% chance to lose $1,000 and 25% chance to lose nothing, most people will risk losing $1,000, hoping for the slim chances of losing nothing. I will take a short pause because this is pretty heavy for any of us to internalize so quickly. But what remains is that this classic example demonstrates people and all of us are willing to take a greater statistical risk if it means avoiding a $1,000 loss versus obtaining a $1,000 win, which contradicts the expected utility theory of classical economics. Reorienting our focus to artificial intelligence. Classically, we are all being hijacked by legacy systems and leaders leading those processes, because there is an inherent sense of loss of control that they feel towards processes, systems, and people if AI were to become all-pervasive. Now, what I'm drawing here is not that this fear is unfounded. This is a very founded and believed fear, and it is very natural to have. But as AI practitioners and as AI change agents, what is it that we need to do? We need to go and meet those leaders where they are. You cannot convert human actors into rational beings or make them completely optimal decision makers. But rather, you meet them where they are and you devise your strategies to combat all of these fears. Moving further, we talk about the availability heuristic. The availability heuristic is a tendency amongst us, human beings and individuals, to actually make decisions very quickly, because we want to harness only the information that's quickly available and easily comes to our mind. And that actually amplifies the problem that we place far more significance on negative outcomes than positive outcomes. So if you're looking at an AI system, despite all talks from the last 2 days and from several years of what AI can do, what is the art of potential, everything that AI is capable of, one negative episode can turn all of that potential into an aversion in our minds. Therefore, as individuals in the community where we want to increase AI adoption, it becomes our prime responsibility to publish and propagate information that is true about AI, that is factual about AI, and not paint a rosy picture to the leaders, to the business leaders who are just getting started. As AI change agents, it is our prime responsibility to first accept ourselves what AI is capable of and what it is not capable of, and propagate that very information. The third thing that we're going to be talking about here is bounded rationality. Now, bounded rationality is a concept in behavioral economics and human decision-making, buying behavior patterns, that says that all of us as individuals actually take decisions within constraints, within certain bounds. And what are those constraints? We always have limited time when we're making decisions in business organizations. We also have limited information available, and we have biases. We have cognitive biases. And as I mentioned earlier, what are these cognitive biases? A confirmation bias. So a confirmation bias says that if I know a certain thing about AI, which is probably negative, I will always try to gather information that points me to the negativity. So I know that I need to implement a generative AI system for doing X, Y, Z tasks in production, but I have heard about the data security challenges, the loss of IP, threats, etc. So when I am evaluating a potential solution about generative AI, I'm actually only looking for pointers and facts that tell me, oh, there's going to be a data security threat. I am not going beyond that and past that to understand, are there actually steps that can be taken for us to combat those issues? So we need to overcome all those kinds of bounded rationality. Another factor here that we need to note about bounded rationality is that when we are presented with AI decisions, they are always data-driven decisions. They are objective decisions. But like we discussed, the human mind does not always want to accept these objective decisions. So we look at, are we truly designing our strategies to lead AI adoption? We understand that classically we are lazy beings. We always want to make decisions quickly. We do not want to spend a lot of time into actually assessing how an AI system is going to perform. We do it. We do it in corporate setups, but are we actually making the right effort to the extent that it is required to build a particular solution? Probably not. What we are doing in our organizations and community as a whole is we are coercing people into adopting AI. But rather, what we need is a nudge. A nudge gives me choices. A nudge tells me that I can do an X or a Y. But a coercion forces me to accept a certain stand because my leadership has accepted the stand or because I have a materialistic gain that I want to get. We need to come and overcome past those kinds of challenges. In the same context, when we talk about AI leaders and AI change leaders, we need to place the right people as our frontline workers. These are the people who themselves are credible, understand, and can educate and propagate AI. We need real AI change agents and not masquerading AI leaders. Now what we're going to talk about is the AI adoption navigator. So probably summing up everything that we talked about, we know there are biases, and there are several biases apart from the concepts that we talked about that need to be tackled. In this 5-point discussion, I would draw your attention to things like the endowment effect, the bandwagon effect, the sunk cost fallacy, and several others. It would take some time for us to internalize and understand all of this, but let's proceed. The first thing here that we're talking about is awareness and framing. Awareness and framing as a vehicle needs to attack the endowment effect. What is the endowment effect? The endowment effect tells me that as a human being, I will always place a very large and great value on things that I possess versus what something else is capable of, which is very correct and very true. But when we devise our strategies, we have to identify the biases that are affecting the decision-making in leaders, whether it's the aversion, whether it's the status quo. I do not want to get past what I already have. I just want to hold it and keep it sacred and safe, or the confirmation bias. And in this endeavor, we need to frame AI as a strategic investment rather than a disruptive threat. We need to frame the advantages of AI as an augmentation vehicle and not as a replacement, because we need to meet our leaders where they are and quash the unfounded aversions that they may have, the resistance that they may have. When we move to the next point, which is nudging decision-making, and which I actually touched upon very briefly, this brings us to a very interesting architecture design that is actually used by governments worldwide to infuse the adoption of certain policies. It is the choice architecture and the default bias. The choice architecture actually places or gives AI or anything that you would want the consumers to accept as the first choice. And if you would want to opt out of it, you have to consciously take a decision to opt out. Now, in the European Union, about 25 countries have used all of these various mechanisms of the choice architecture, the default bias, and the opt-out policy to enhance and grow organ adoption amongst the general masses. So we need to create a choice architecture for our leaders where AI adoption is the default choice. We need to make AI adoption for them very, very seamless, and we need to proactively provide them with options that will help them to embed AI into their systems realistically and pragmatically. The third thing that we're talking about here is the information and decision support. So when we talk about the information and decision support, we touch about something which is called as the bandwagon effect. Now, what is the bandwagon effect? The bandwagon effect actually tells me that if I see 10 of my friends doing a certain thing, I would want to board the bus and do the same thing. So if we are able to craft stories and tell stories of success, again, realistically and pragmatically, to leaders and help them get onto the bus or give them the early adopter advantage, we will definitely see an uptick. And research reports point to this fact when we look classically at technology adoption at scale. So we need to devise these strategies in the decision support systems that we are creating. Now, what's important when we're talking about all of this is also that these changes do not only need to happen at the layer where production is happening, because in any economic system, you have producers and you have consumers. Producers of AI are people who would be actually creating systems, platforms, solutions. Consumers also have a certain responsibility in all of this to get themselves educated and come on with us to understand this better. The next thing that we're talking about is feedback and learning loops. Now, there is a sunk cost fallacy, which says that the cost of not adopting AI or the cost of not making a decision itself sometimes is very, very high. And it is more than the cost that you would spend on actually AI investments or AI initiatives to begin with. Choice is ours. Where do we want to land 5 years down the line when we would have seen complete adoptions, maybe complete adoptions happening for organizations and enterprises? So we need to tackle the sunk cost fallacy. And when we do that, it is important for us to show small wins. We need to get leaders with us on board and give them short, quick wins in the process. Which is what points me to the last point, which is pilot programs and incremental adoption. Now, we have always classically said that, you think big, you start small, and you begin to work on those smaller initiatives and projects. But have you ever thought what happens behind the scenes in our brains and the way we are making decisions to understand what causes the impact of people being able to propagate that? It draws its fact from the commitment and consistency bias. As an individual, if I commit to a certain project or to a certain initiative, I will make sure that it is successful. I will do everything in my might to justify the decisions that I have taken, positively and impactfully. And therefore, if you can get your leaders to commit to and begin looking at AI, maybe as a pilot project, you for sure have an advocate for yourself who will go ahead and propagate that to 2 projects, 5 projects, 20 projects, and spread that message across the organization within the community. Because when we look at AI, definitely the potential is very, very high, and it gets all of us excited in rooms where we're talking about these things. Now, when I move further, I want to leave you all with a thought. If there's one thing that I want everyone to take away from the discussion that we just had in this room, is to understand that enterprise growth is not an isolated growth. Do you think bias, traceability, and privacy are the only issues to be tackled? When you are talking about artificial intelligence and Gen AI in your organizations, is your strategy team taking a passive approach towards artificial intelligence? For example, when you walk around the corridors in your offices, do you hear things like, oh, this is just another hyperwave. It shall pass by soon. Next quarter onwards, we will see all this coming down, the graph going down. Or thinking that generative AI is just another tool. This could be done with traditional methods as well, equally impactfully and equally beneficially. Or that, since we are yet to see industry-wide adoption, since we are yet to see a production-grade implementation, it's okay for us to wait and watch. I would like to tell you that the adoption of AI is beyond the infrastructure IT walls, or beyond the impervious layers of your data strategy, or even beyond the convolutions of your AI models. It's a problem with the way we think, we respond, and we act. And that is the fundamental change that we need to bring. If we still feel that generative AI, or AI for that matter, threatens my autonomy or my professional mastery, I am risking myself. I am risking the entire organization to be like the horse cart carriage owners when Model T Ford came into existence or made its debut, and everybody, all the horse cart carriage owners and the blacksmiths faced obsolescence. We are going to repeat that in the 21st century. We know, we understand that from coffee to mechanical refrigeration, from internet to the computers when they became household names, there has always been resistance, and there will always be. In fact, closer home, why not look at the ride-hailing cabs that we have, the Ubers and the Olas of the world, when they were introduced into our own country? There was massive resistance. But today, you have the very own section of the economics, that is the auto drivers, the rickshaw drivers being onboarded onto those apps. Yet, there is still a section of people or of actors in the economy that have not adopted it. Go to Goa and you would not find any Uber or Olas running around. It is for us now to act, to decide, and to move fast forward to understand what we need to do, how we need to devise our strategies, which don't just talk about the data, the compute, the tech stack. We need a visionary. We need things beyond the top-down culture management. We need things that go beyond talking about executive agents, or that go beyond talking about the classical stacks that keep changing and we need to adapt. I leave you all with open thoughts that you should go back and introspect to identify what is it that we want to do together as a community to raise awareness, to become smarter, to make our people smarter, and increase AI adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sinha. Anyone in the audience with questions, please put your hands up in the air. We will have someone come up to you with a microphone. Just put your hands up in the air.
A very open-ended discussion, no questions. You're free to go back and think about it.
But we do have one question.
Oh,
Can we take that?
Yeah. Lovely.
My name is Krishna. So I have a quick question. So
I am sorry, I can't see you. Where are you?
okay, here.
All right, yeah.
I have a quick question. So, so if AI is so, inevitable, and it's what it founded.
Please be louder.
Yeah. So if AI is so inevitable, then why do organizations, why have they not adopted it at a scale that we would have liked to see today? So when I talk to people around on AI, large enterprises, conglomerates, at a very, very nascent, if not early stage. Why is that? Is there a skepticism? Is it fear? Is it lack of awareness?
Actually, your question answered, had the answers in itself. So it's a mix and match of everything that we've talked about in the last 30 minutes or so, right? There is obviously a sense of fear that I'm going to lose control. I think more than that, it's also about the awareness that we have about AI systems and what is it that I need to do versus what I don't need to do to make AI programs and initiatives successful. It's a combination of several biases that impact our decision making. It's a combination sometimes of several challenges that occur even within the organization themselves. You have section of people who are adopters, who accept and acknowledge the facts, whereas there is a section of people within the organization who are only looking at rosy pictures. And we have to bring them together, make them meet at a certain point, from where on you could together go ahead in the journey and the race. Right?
There's a question at the back, I believe. The gentleman in the white shirt, do you have a question? Do you have a question, sir? No? Okay. Anyone else with questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm Divya from Lab and Pioneer Digital Group. So in between when we were talking about a slide with onboarding leaders and also other clients about how to invest and how to look into the AI topics, right? We also said that it would help to onboard some leaders if we have some quick wins. I'm having this kind of a debate in my head. Wouldn't that be compromising on the the risk that we're talking about, the security and the privacy and other things?
Very well-founded question. See, when we talk about quick wins, we are not talking about shortcuts. When we're talking about quick wins in the space of AI, we are definitely talking about practical and pragmatic ways of adopting AI, which do take care of everything that entails within a responsible AI system. So we're not saying that you don't need to bake in explainability. We're not saying that you don't need to secure your infrastructure. We're not saying that you don't need to have fundamentals in place to guard your models. When we say quick wins, we say you have a large project which you actually divide into smaller parts and show successes in phases, right?
Are you done?
It answered my question.
You got the answer. Okay, perfect. All right, so if you can very quickly, I have a little bit of a question. I'm going to ask it in two parts. May not have anything to do with AI for the first question. The first question being, first of all, congratulations on the phenomenal presentation. Can we give her a big round of applause, please? It was very well done. How do you structure presentations like these? Because you're a very good orator, quite obviously. How do you structure things like these? Do you use AI in order to structure something like this? That's question number one. Question number two, and I think this is also, given that we're having a panel that's going to be having these conversations come up on stage, in your opinion, what do you think about a large majority of the population losing work to AI in a majority of spaces?
All right, I'll answer both your questions. The first one, do we use AI to create presentations like this? I would definitely use AI to help me validate the structure that I have in my mind for a certain piece of work that I am doing. Would I give complete control to AI to make that presentation? No. And as I said earlier, when you're looking at AI systems, you look them as augmentation vehicles and not as replacements. Right? That's the first part. The second part is people losing jobs because of AI. Studies reveal and research shows that people who do not upskill themselves, who do not actually catch on to the wave of AI, are actually the ones who would lose their jobs. Job loss is not going to happen because of AI. There's a job shift that's going to happen because of AI. So obviously, newer jobs will get created, and you will need to move from one thing to the other. You will become smarter if you adopt AI, and you will begin to do work smartly if you adopt AI. Yeah? Thank you. Thank you.